Hey Magic fans, welcome back. This is your captain speaking here on Capnclydes MTG. We've got the spoilers, leaks, whatever you want to call it, for Ixalan Lost Caverns for the 25th. So, before we get into it, don't forget, comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Best way to support the channel, subscribe here, like us on Rumble. Also, TCG, eBay, Patreon, all that good stuff's in the description if you want to go there. So, without further ado, we got quite a few to go over, so let's get into the new Ixalan Lost Caverns spoilers. So, we have the bestest of dinos, the Dinomation. So, Dinosaur Gnome, very interesting. So, for a red and 3, get a 4/3 with Menace, and when it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gains Menace till end of turn. I mean, it's fine for limited, but probably all it's going to see. Next, we have this thing. So, Sunbird Standard. So, it starts off over here as a 3 colorless artifact that you tap, add 1 mana of any color, craft with 1 or more permanent and or cards 5. Okay, so it becomes Sunbird Effigy, which is a bird construct, flying, vigilance, and haste. Power and toughness equal to the colors among cards exiled to craft. Tap, add 1 mana for each color among cards exiled to craft. So, you can exile as many permanents as you want, up to 5. Unlike other things, this doesn't have to be an artifact. It could be any kind of colored permanent. So it could be like a white token, a black token, green tokens to give you the color to make it big and make it tap for lots of mana with flying and haste. This, I mean, it's an uncommon. It's probably okay, but it seems like this costs a little bit too much to actually see any play. All right, next we have Tarian's Journal. So 1 black and 1 for legendary artifact. Tap, sacrifice another artifact or creature, draw a card, activate only as a sorcery. Pretty sweet. 2, tap, discard your hand, transform the journal. That's really cool, especially if you don't have a hand, because no cost. So it becomes the legendary cave, the Tomb of Ixalan. Tap for a black. Tap, you may cast a creature card from your graveyard this turn. If you do, it enters the battlefield with a finality counter on it, and it's a vampire in addition to other types. This will definitely see play. 2 mana is not a bad thing. The ability to sack things to draw cards, and once you run your hand out for 2 mana, tapping it, making it a land that lets you cast things again from your graveyard. This is going to be a powerhouse. Probably going to be in a lot of commander decks. Might even see some standard play. Alright, next we have... God, these names. Matlazan Lantili? I don't know. The Great Door. Anyway, 3 colorless, legendary artifact. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Do all these artifacts draw cards? Jesus. For 4 and tap, you could transform the Great Door. Activate only if there are 4 more permanent cards, 4 more permanent types among cards in your graveyard. I.e., it says here, artifact, battle, creature, enchantment, land, planeswalker, blah, 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 or permanent types. When you do, it becomes a legendary land called The Core. It has Fathomless Descent. Tap. Add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. This seems insanely good for Commander. Not only does it draw draw and discard to smooth out your hand, but it basically becomes the best Lotus there is. You know, you don't sack it, you get 1 of every color. This is just absurd. I think every commander deck's going to run this thing probably. This looks like it's going to be an all-star. Alright, moving on. Next we have Explorer's Cache. A green and 1 for this artifact. When it enters the battlefield, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever a creature you control, the +1/+1 counter on it dies. Put a +1/+1 counter on Explorer's Cache. You can tap it, move a +1/+1 counter from the cache to target creature, activate only as a sorcery. Probably fine for limited, only because you can only move 1 counter at a time, and you can stack counters on it. Not as good as the Ikoria one, the Ozolith, but still okay. Probably limited at best. Next, we have a reprint, Chromatic Orrery. If you don't remember what this used to do, it was 7 colorless to add So for a legendary artifact, you could tap to add five colorless. For 5, and tapping this, you draw a card for each color among the permanents you control, and your permanents now cost any mana to cast. So the 5 colorless mana it gives you can cast anything in your deck 5 or less. Pretty sweet reprint, but not worth a whole lot. Next we have Gold Fury Strider, red and 4 artifact creature golem with trample. It's a 3/5. Tap 2 untap artifacts and or creatures you control. Target creature gets +2/+0 in a turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So no combat tricks. You have to do it before you attack to make it a 5/5. Probably just a limited player at best. Next we have Skullcap Snail. Look at that little fella. Black and 1 for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. Some of the best removal when discarding is making your opponent exile a card. This will probably definitely see limited play. It probably won't see a whole lot of standard play, but you never know. Might be a black deck out there somewhere looking for this. Alright, next we have Careening Minecart. Alright, is that a Dockside Extortionist in that cart? Anyway, 3 colorless for this 3/3 vehicle. Whenever Careening Minecart attacks, create a treasure token. It is a Dockside Extortionist. Get it? Treasures? And it crews for 1. So this thing's pretty cool. Gonna definitely see limited play. Maybe standard play. It might be good enough for standard. Next we have the Mischievous Pup. A white and 2 for this 3/1 flash creature. It's a dog. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So kind of a way to protect your stuff if you want to keep it in your hand. Probably best in limited, but it's probably not going to see play anywhere else. Just a little bit too much mana. Doesn't really do enough. Next we have Sovereign Oknek Adahu. Good lord, I don't even know. It's a cat noble. It's a cat. White, green, and 2 for this 3/4. It has Ward 2. Whenever it attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base. Okay, for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base power, put a number of +1/+1 counters on that creature equal to the difference. Okay, so what this is basically saying is attacking with this will give you nothing, but if you put a +1/+1 counter on this and make it a 4/5, its base power is 3. The counter is extra. So after that, you attack as a 4/5. There's a 1-point difference between the base of 3 and its current power of 4, making it a 5/6. Attack again, it's going to get 2 because now there's a 2 difference, so forth and so on for every creature you have. Seems pretty cool. Probably only in the right kind of deck, so it might be kind of narrow to play. Next we have Preacher of the Schism. Schism? Anyway. Black and 2 for this 2/4 Death Toucher. Not a bad rate. Whenever it attacks a player with the most life or tied for the most life, creates a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Whenever Preacher of Schism attacks while you have the most life or are tied for the most life, you draw a card and lose a life. So a very good card, but lots of situations going on here. I could easily see it get played. Because it says here, whenever it attacks a player with the most life or tied for the most life, you get to create a 1/1. So you get 1/1s, but whenever it attacks and you have the most life, you draw a card and lose a life. So it's going to be a good card. It's just going to be very situational what you get out of it. I think it's going to see play. 3 mana for a 2/4 with Death Touch. Makes it hard to kill while it kills everything else. Plus, it can make 1/1s or draw you cards. This seems like a good card. I know it doesn't look like it, but I think when we see it get played, we're going to see how powerful it really is. Next, we have the 3-fold Thunderhulk. That is the dumbest picture. Anyway, 7 colorless for an 0/0. It enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you create a number of 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature tokens equal to its power. Okay. For 2, sacrifice another artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on the Thunderhulk. Okay, so it comes in at 3. And when it enters the battlefield, you get 3 1/1. So 7 mana gets you basically 6/6 worth of power toughness. You can then start stacking power onto it, so when it swings, it gets you more gnomes. Very powerful and limited. I don't think it's going to see much play anywhere else unless it's maybe some kind of deck that cheats it into play. But anyway, moving on, we have Kid Jowl's Dawn Runner, I think. White and 2 for a human scout 1/1 with double strike. When it enters the battlefield, you explore. So for 3 mana, maybe a 2/2 with double strike. Not bad rate. Worst case scenario, for 3 mana, you get a 1/1 and draw a card. I've seen worse. Definitely limited, but that's about it. All right, we have the Sanguine Evangelist. White and 2 for a 2/1 with Battle Cry. We haven't seen Battle Cry in a long time. Battle Cry is whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0. Whenever the Evangelist enters the battlefield or dies, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. So 3/2 worth of power for 3, definitely good. Battle Cry, sweet. This is going to be a powerful card. Probably going to definitely see some play in Standard and definitely limited. Next we have, oh boy, what a name. Aquilostes Deepest Betrayal, I think. Anyway, 2 black and 3 for a 4/4 flying lifelink bat god. Okay. Whenever it attacks, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. God, that's good. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. That's even better. And when it dies, return to the battlefield, tapped and transformed under its owner's control. This is an insane card. It comes in as Temple of the Dead. Comes in, taps for black. For black and 2, you can transform Temple of the Dead. Activate only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, and only as a sorcery. Notice it says a player. That could be you. So this just seems really good. 5 mana to get it out, and then it never goes away. It looks like exile effects are definitely on the menu for this set and Standard, as all these powerful cards just don't seem to go away when they die. You're going to have to exile a lot of them. So, next we have the Unstable Glyph Bridge, which is this. All right, lots of text here. Artifact. When Unstable Glyph Bridge enters the battlefield, if you cast it, or each player... Wait a minute. Okay. When Unstable Glyph Bridge enters the battlefield, if you cast it, or each player choose a... Okay, if you cast it, I think each player choose a creature with power 2 or less that player controls. Destroy all creatures not chosen this way. I think that's what it's supposed to mean. You can craft with an artifact for 2 white and 3, which then turns it into an artifact golem with flying. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during their turn, they can't attack you or a planeswalker you control this turn. Each opponent that attacked you or a planeswalker you control this turn can't cast spells this turn. Wow, that's... So if you flip this, either you get to cast spells or you get to swing. End of story. We're going to need the real translation on this. I think I got it translated right, even though it's not really translated right. But what this really looks like to me is a good win condition for a control deck, which is might be prevalent if this becomes a thing. So, moving on. All right, here we go. Something a little less text. Deeproot Pilgrimage. Blue and 1 for an enchantment. Whenever one or more non-token merfolk you control become tapped, create a 1/1 blue merfolk creature token with hexproof. Not too bad. I believe this is a reprint. Don't quote me on that, but I think this was in Ixalan before. Or a card very similar to it. Next we have the Koti Scavenger, green and 2 for a 3/2. Descend 4. When a scavenger enters the battlefield, there are 4 or more permanents in your graveyard. Add target permanent card to your hand. Alright, so it's kind of a cheaper... Well, I guess it's not a cheaper Eternal Witness, but it starts for 1 green, not 2. So easier to play Eternal Witness, but it has some conditions. With that being said, I see this being a very easily being a very powerful card. It's going to see Standard play and limited play because getting 4 cards in your graveyard is not going to be hard. Now, next, moving on, we have Spelology. Is that like Spelunklingology? Anyway, green and 2 for this enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Then you can place a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you place a cave this way, gain 4 life. Lands you control enter the battlefield tapped. I mean, okay. If it only happens once, I don't see what the real point of this is. I mean, maybe we're missing something in translation here. From what I'm looking at right now, I don't think this is a good card. We'll have to wait and see the actual translation. Anyway, moving on. All right, we have Sinuous Benthosaurus. Ugh. I like the sunken ruins in the background there. Anyway, blue and 5 for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards in your library, where X is the number of caves you control plus the number of cave cards in your graveyard. Put 2 of those cards into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in random order. Not bad. Probably. I mean, at best limited. 6 mana is just so much. I mean, it could be okay in Commander, although if you're playing a lot of caves, I haven't seen a whole lot of caves that make mana. And in limited, you'd have to have at least 2 caves to look at X cards and get 2 of them. I don't know. This seems like a stretch. I don't think this is going to be good enough for anything. All right, moving on. Next, we have Bloodletter of Aclazotas. Oh, God. I'm never going to pronounce that right. Anyway, 3 black and 1. Wow, what a casting cost. For a vampire demon that flies, it's a 2/4. Whenever an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life instead. Damage causes loss of life. Alright, so this is cool. It doubles combat damage, basically, or anything else, any kind of life loss on your turn. But for 3 black and 1, it might be a bit much. Unless there's going to be a mono black deck, this might not see a whole lot of play in standard. Could see some commander play. I mean, 3 black's not the most terrible thing in the world, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. All right, guys. So that's the wrap up for today of all the Ixalan, the Lost Cavern spoilers. Thanks a lot for watching. I do appreciate it. Until next time, be kind. And as always, I hope to see you across from the game table. Whew, I tell you what, these names, I'm going to have to get a damn thesaurus.